There's a sport in America that has its origin within the English game of rugby football, and now known for being a scientifically, needlessly, violent and dangerous game, and mainly appeals to the uneducated niche that comprises of Americans of European descent. It asks, no, it begs the question, why is American football only popular within the United States of America and nowhere else in the world? There are a few reasons as to why the sport is popular within America and not necessarily in other countries throughout the world. Asking people from other countries about it, and they might have heard about it due to the National Football League's insane advertisements, which will be mentioned in detail later in the discussion. A dislike of the sport in other countries throughout the world, and the variant is mostly just played within America. The origins for this obsessive nature of the sport lies soon after the sport was diverged from rugby football in the mid-1800s. What is now considered American football was first played in 1869, and throughout the rest of the century, the rules were redefined, adjusted, and set up for modern games. When the NFL was formed in 1920, it was set up as the premier league for the sport. Contrary to popular belief, the sport was not instantly successful. People weren't actually interested in the game. It wasn't until the Rose Bowl, which was first played and started in 1916, and the Super Bowl later on in 1967, when the sport really took off in terms of popularity. After the Rose Bowl was first played, and annually from then on, it was learned that serious money could be made from these said games. It wasn't until after the Second World War, with the returning soldiers coming home, that they looked for something to help occupy their time with. The NFL catered the sport to them and branded it as the working man's sport, the American sport. This sort of idea, relation, reflection, and connection to the sport helped it to grow. The baby boomer generation grew up watching the game, and the NFL catered to them most of all. Throughout the decades, the sport increased in popularity, and now players can be among the highest paid athletes of any sport within America, possibly even the world. But with the popularity comes controversy. Former players started to complain about the unnecessarily ruthless and unsafe conditions within the game from about the 1960s and 1970s. But it wasn't until the 1980s and 1990s did the complaints become so loud enough that independent scientists confirmed the bodily injuries and stress with the game can result in lifelong damage for the players. As mentioned before, the NFL is a huge lobbying force within America for the sport, and millions of dollars of revenue are a potential risk if players come out with this sort of information, these sorts of revelations. So they discredit the players and professionals who support them in any way possible, who have said that the game can be a risk the way it's played now. It wasn't until the early 2000s that they were finally forced to admit that the game can be dangerous to play professionally. The popularity of the game from 2010 and after has also slightly declined. Reports have said that the overall viewership of the game has been slowly decreasing from the 1990s and after. Generation X and the millennials aren't so eager for the game as the baby boomers and the greatest generation were. Once again, American footballers are among the highest paid athletes in the country. Where does the money come from if people don't watch the games or buy related merchandise? The NFL actually tried to create a European branch of the game, which existed from 1991 to 2007 as NFL Europe, with only a small handful of countries willing to play. It wasn't popular. In the mid-2000s, the NFL sought to bring the game to China, but once again, popularity in the sport is mixed, as the Chinese government is seeking to promote the real football rather than the American variant. The NFL even decided to try and pander to younger millennials with a cartoon promoting the sport in NFL Rush Zone from 2010 through 2014. only having limited success with promoting the sport. In the late 2010s and onward, immigrants from other countries changed the demographics of America, there naturally bringing with them interests in other sports. European football, which is popular globally, is starting to become finally popular within America, and cricket is also increasing in popularity, which hasn't been popular within the country for over 200 years. It's estimated that American football will remain the popular sport it is for at least another 10 or 20 more years, coinciding with the end of the lifespan of the majority of the baby boomer generation. Once the generation is gone, the sport will remain popular, but not the branded all-American sport that it was decades before.